Hey, everybody. Before we start the show, I just wanted to talk about our very favorite sponsor, ourselves. That's right. The Johnversations Podcast merch store is open for business. We have a bunch of cool designs available from t-shirts, hoodies, even baby onesies. Additionally, we have two specific designs that benefit great charitable organizations. We have face masks available, and all profits from that design are going to go to No Kid Hungry. In addition, we have our demand change design. All profits from that particular design are going to go to 8 Can't Wait and their goal of comprehensive police reform. So whether you're supporting us and rocking the pod, or you just want to support a worthy cause, you can check it out at www.johnversationspodcast.com or click the links in the show notes below if you're listening via Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, wherever, or watching on YouTube. So yeah, check it out. Thank you for your support and the love. And now let's start episode 22. Johnversations Podcast. This is episode 22. My guest today, I could not be more excited. She is an artist and a figure skating coach, but you may know her from season 10 of a little show called Married at First Sight. Johnversations Podcast family, please welcome Miss Mindy Shiben. Mindy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I am so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And kids, if you're listening to the show, it does not hurt to send somebody an Instagram message. I sent Mindy a message, just let her know that we were big fans. People who've listened to the show before, we launched in January, which is right around the time your season was coming out. And I was like, it became something that I talked about frequently, especially you. So this is a big deal for myself and for people who listen to the show. They know how much they know how fanatic we are about it in the house here. So just thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
That's so awesome. No, thanks for having me. Really, I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, and you came with a professional set and everything looks great. So it's A1. I'm loving it. I did want to ask you just to kind of start off because, your season came, the beginning of the year. And then very shortly after we got hit with this crazy pandemic and COVID happened and everything like that. Like before we kind of jump into the things I want to talk about with you, my first thing I want to do is just kind of check in and ask how you've been dealing with the quarantine and now all the mask wearing and everything like that. How's life been for you, since all that happened?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's been rough. I'm sure, that's one thing that everyone in this country and even the world that we're all going through this together. For me, it's been, it's funny, I guess, like mid-March, right before, the country went on pretty much complete lockdown. I had some trips lined up, was really excited about traveling in the spring and summer. And I was actually going to go to Canada, the day that we, went into lockdown mode. So didn't go to Canada, but my mom has a beach house in North Carolina. So I'm just like, Mom, do you want to just go to the beach house and, spend some nice time there in quarantine together? And at this time, of course, we're thinking it might be like 2 weeks. We did not have any idea we'd still be in, this quarantine situation now. But it was, I would say, of course, I wanted to be traveling and everything, but it was really nice to be able to have that time to connect with my mom and just spend time, outdoors and everything. But then maybe a month ago, I came back to Maryland, where I live now, and things are starting to open back up. I've been able to get back to work a little bit. It's still, I'm sure everyone's just feeling the frustration from all angles, financially, socially. It's been a struggle, but I'm making the best of it.
Well, I'm definitely glad to hear that. I know I mean, it's got to be nice to, especially in that situation, because we've talked about it before, but like, I can't imagine being like single or like not having, um, like family or someone that like you are. It's a terrible thing to go through, but being around people that make it a little bit easier definitely helps. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
being on the beach with the family doesn't sound like a terrible way to have to spend that time.
Yeah.
I know here in Tennessee, it's been very rough because, our cases are still just kind of climbing.
Hmm.
Yesterday we hit our record high day in 1 day total.
Oh,
So
wow.
my family is still very much kind of locking stuff down, and
Yeah.
luckily
Yeah.
I work from home, but my wife works at a drug treatment facility,
Oh,
and so she's having to go in, and they're all wearing masks and things like that. So it's just, I don't know, it's a crazy time. I don't think I did want to ask you, because I'm sure like after the season ended, like I know you said you were traveling and stuff like that. Like, were you going to be doing any like press work for the show or interviews and stuff like did that kind of stuff get halted, or were you pretty much kind of done with that? Or
Um, yes and no. A lot of the press stuff, well, it's hard to say because we have a great PR lady that handles all of that, but a lot of that stuff happens really fast. She'll connect me with something, and there'll be an interview like in a day or so. So it was kind of interview time, but a lot of that we were able to just do, through podcasts or through just written articles. So I don't really know how that may have been different. I mean, it would have been cool to be able to do some in-person interviews, but maybe someday we'll get that chance. Who knows?
yeah, I'm definitely hoping. I told my wife that today. I was like, it's just kind of thinking that like this is because it's been going on for so many months, it feels like it's something that's never going to end, but like there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel
Yeah.
at some point. Like hopefully things will, at some point, will go back to semi normal. So I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm just glad that you had the opportunity to kind of be with family and be around people who cared about you and stuff like that. I mean, if you can't travel, or my whole family lives in Michigan, so we had made plans to go see everybody, and I had a nephew who was born, and it's like we're just here, we can't go. So
Oh,
it's got to be good to be able to surround yourself with those people and things like that. Speaking of your family, one thing I did want to ask, because like I said, everybody knows you from Married at First Sight season 10. I would go as far to say is like you were, at least in our household, you were like the darling rock star. Like I was telling my wife, it feels very much almost like football or basketball, where once you get a couple episodes in, you're very much like, okay, this is my team. You know what I mean? And we were like Team Mindy 110%. Um,
oh yeah.
eh, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just hate I wish like so bad it would have been like Team Mindy, and that's what I was like hoping for so bad, to be on the same team with my partner. So as much as I love to hear that, it's like I don't know.
Oh no. And I mean,
Yeah.
I, I could definitely see why you would think that, and I definitely want to make sure that we're talking about that as well. But yeah, I kind of wanted to ask. I mean, since you had talked about your family, like
Yeah.
to give people an idea of who you are as a person, because like we were talking about before the show, I think it's so easy when you see somebody on TV.
Hmm.
It's so easy to you equate them to like that's who they are, and from everything that I did a little bit of research before we sat down today, and from everything that I've found, you're incredibly talented at several different things. I mean, you're a veteran, which I don't remember them talking about very much in the show and stuff like that. So, I wanted to ask you, tell me a little bit about like where you grew up. What kind of kid were you, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh boy. So I'm one of four girls. So and I'm the second. So one older sister and two younger. We're all like pretty close in age, about 2 years apart. And I grew up in I say I'm from Frederick, Maryland. So everywhere you read, it'll say from Frederick. But like actually for uh the first few years of my upbringing, like a really small town, no one knows, called Mount Airy, Maryland. And so that's where I like went to elementary school and stuff. But my parents divorced when I was 10, and I ended up, it was kind of weird in some ways, kind of sad. My older sister and I ended up going to live with my dad, and my younger two sisters stayed with my mom. So not really a traditional way of doing that. I mean, we were close enough that we could all see each other, but like for a day to day, family structure, it was very much so torn apart. So that was really, really hard. And that we mostly did that because my older sister and I were becoming very competitive figure skaters, and my dad was able to and wanting to support that dream. And my mom, not saying that either one of them were wrong, but my mom was just a little bit more realistic as far as not wanting to pour all of our resources into figure skating. So anyway, so that's kind of how I grew up. I was all in to the figure skating life throughout middle school, high school. Towards the end of high school, I found boys and became, I don't know, a little bit of a rebel, a little bit of like a bad kid for a little while. Didn't have a lot of supervision because I was just living with my dad and he was very busy, So I had my years, but then decided to go into the Air Force soon after high school, and that straightened me up and set me on a pretty good path. So I'm grateful for my military years for giving me that kind of structure back in my life.
That's so. It sounds like you had like your smoking in the girls' room period.
Yeah, a little bit. Just
That's
a couple
awesome.
years there.
Well, and yeah, I think that's normal. I think I know when I graduated high school, I made my mom a promise, which is silly, but I remember going into middle school and my mom was like, promise me that you're not going to drink or like try drugs or anything like that until you graduate from high school. And I was like, cool, deal. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I was like, promise fulfilled. Now it's time to like see how much fun so I spent a couple years like off the rails for a little bit. So I think, everybody kind of goes through that. How long were you in the Air Force?
4 years. So I enlisted for 4 years and carried out my enlistment and was honorably discharged. And I was kind of on the fence whether or not to re-up, to re-enlist. But I just, there were so many other things I wanted to pursue, and I love the military, but I also, it does hold you back from, you can't just take off and do whatever you want. You belong to them. So I basically just kind of wanted the freedom to pursue other things.
Do your own thing.
Yeah.
Did you deploy anywhere? Or were you like still in the States? Like, did you get to travel anywhere?
Yeah, I was stationed a few different places stateside, and I deployed once to Qatar. I was airborne, so I was a flyer, and that Qatar is a big air base in the Middle East.
Okay, that's awesome. How long were you there for?
My deployment, it was on the shorter side. I want to say about 4 months. It was over the holidays. I think I went like soon, like October-ish, and came back right after Valentine's Day.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, when you were there, I mean, were you pretty much, I had one of my best friends of 20 years, was on 2 weeks ago and he's a veteran Marine. So he's been to Iraq and, was deployed to Africa. And he actually found out when he came home, he did his genealogy and found out that his descendants were actually from where he was deployed.
Oh, wow.
In Africa. So he was very like, oh man, like I wish I would have got a chance to see the like sites a little bit. If I would have known before, like I would have spent a little bit more time kind of checking out the culture. Did you get a chance to kind of take in the culture, or were you on the base, for the majority of the time?
I had like one day where we got to go into Doha, the capital, and see. We went to the shopping malls. They had an ice rink inside the shopping mall, so I was like, "No, I miss skating so much," and went out to eat, and yeah, we got to take in the culture a little bit throughout that day. It was fun.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask, how old were you? Because in the show, they show you, there's a couple clips of you figure skating. You infamously, one of the dates that you took Zach on was kind of showing him your world. And I remember we were watching, and my wife and I were like, damn, like because I'm the guy, I can go forward, I can skate backwards a little bit, and that's it. So seeing somebody, twirling and really, I'm somebody that, like, if you are talented at something and you kind of mastered a craft, that is like really impressive to me. And I find myself in awe a little bit. Like, because I know that you said, when you've done it since you were a kid, but like, when did you find that was something that you were passionate about, or when did you start going down that road?
That I remember the 1994 Olympics with Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. That whole thing. I had skated like a couple times before that, and maybe taken a couple lessons, but that got me so interested, and I just I was just the biggest fan. I'm just like, I have to do this. I have to be in this world. This is so badass. It's not just like, oh, dancing around on ice. Like, this is so competitive that people are bashing each other in the knee, So I was, I think, about 8 when I started, like, wanting to compete and stuff like that. And yeah, there was no turning back. But yeah, no, when the whole process going on Married at First Sight, I was like, I'm a figure skating coach and a former, figure skater. Because I teach figure skating, but when you teach, you demonstrate like some easy things, to the kids that are learning. But most of my skaters that can skate, and, I don't do the jumps and spins and stuff like that myself anymore. You really got to be in shape and trained, to do that stuff. And I remember when they were like filming, they're like, all right, Mindy, go, let's see some tricks and this and that. And I'm like, oh, no. I don't really, you're not going to get like a whole lot. And so I just stuck with some pretty basic spins and jumps, but
that's awesome. Yeah. I remember, because I think we're about the same age. I'm 35, and I remember the 94 Olympics and like the rivalry between those two. Like, do you think it was, because it felt like for the first time in like the Olympics, at least, in the first time that, because I was like 9 years old, but even then I remember being like, oh, like there's some drama here. Like, these two ladies like don't like each other one bit. Was that maybe like, do you think some of that played into it, where it just like got so compelling, or like was it just watching them and kind of seeing them do their thing?
I think a little of both. I think because it was such a big story, figure skating was the Olympics was, it was so big that year. I think figure skating is always like a big Winter Olympic sport, but that it was everywhere, all over the news. And I was just so interested in their story, and then just obviously blown away by, the talent at the Olympics. And I was not going to lie, I was rooting for Tanya. I mean, I'm a Tanya fan. I'm not hide that fact. I think she's a really cool person. I've never met her. I really want to someday, but yeah, it broke my details, but her skate lace broke at the Olympics, and it was just really sad, because I wanted her to do really well.
Yeah, I know they made the movie with Margot Robbie. And I watched it on cable. It was actually like, I was like, man, like, because I think when you see somebody at the Olympics, you don't think about kind of what we're talking about with you, right? Like, we've seen you on TV, but like, do people know that much about where you came from, what got you there? And I think that was part of the same thing, is like, she had a crazy life before that, but had the skill and was able to, make something of herself with the skill. And then for things I'm kind of a Tanya fan as well. Cause I think if you're not that I condone it, but like if you're that pat where you're like, I'm going to win no matter what, there's something that's kind of like, there's something that's compelling about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Now, was your goal, I mean, were you thinking like, when you were younger, like, were you, I'm going to be in the Olympics, or like, was that like the plan back then?
Yeah, that was definitely the plan. I was all in. Um, I mean, in some ways I think that might not be very realistic for most people, but someone has to go to the Olympics. So, why couldn't it be me? So of course, I really had the drive to, make it. And then I think when I realized, yeah, I'm good at this, but I'm not where, and a future Olympian would be at my age, then my goals shifted a little bit into like, what can I do with this sport? There's good chance at this point I'm not going to be an Olympian. So I'm actually really happy that like I would take my life now being a skating coach over being an Olympian, because I feel like I actually get to like make a difference in these kids' lives, and it's the most rewarding thing I could ever imagine.
That is, I don't know. I think that's awesome to hear because, like I said, we've had people on the show. My friend, Morgan Hare, who's been on the show before, she's a professional vocalist, in Chicago, and she teaches at School of Rock. And she's, hey, I've had this experience. I've gone to school to be a performer. I've done this job, this job, this job. Let me like show you, let me if someone can be there to kind of show you or walk you through your options or what it looks like, or if you want to get there, how dedicated you have to be. I think there's something special about someone who would say, hey, I've got this talent, but I'm not just going to like hold it to myself. I want to help other people.
Yeah.
How old are the kids? Like, is it kind of like across the board, or do you like work with a specific age group?
Yeah, I pretty much across the board. I have a synchronized skating team, and they're pretty young. They are between like 6 and up to 12. So they're kind of like the first competitive level of that division, synchronized skating. But I teach like the freestyle and moves and like the other stuff too. And yeah, sometimes the adults will come out because a lot of times adults will want to learn because they want to skate with their kids. And I think that's really sweet. Um, Sometimes 2-year-olds will get out there and I'm like, make sure your kid can walk well before we put skates on them, please. Or else it's just, going to be a rough time. But no, when they're like really, really young, I think it's all about just having a fun time. Like they're probably not going to skate themselves yet, but just, getting a good relationship with the ice and the environment and everything.
Yeah, and it seems like a fun way. Like, I was telling you, my daughter is almost 2, and right now, I mean, she can barely run without falling on her face. So I don't
Mhm.
know if putting her on the ice on skates would be, where we want to go just yet. But it seems like it would be a good way to kind of like, number one, burn off some energy, and then
Yeah.
number two, like, I feel like, and maybe you could speak to this, but if you're at a young age and you can develop a skill and have something to work at, especially if you grasp it and then you kind of, I don't want to say master that skill at such a young age, but like you're working towards mastering something,
Mhm.
it's got to, I mean, at that age, it's got to do wonders for your self-esteem to kind of be like,
Mhm.
I'm so good at that. I mean, was that something that, do you think that's something that kind of kept you going in it all those years? Just being like, I
Yeah.
kick ass at this, like I should keep going.
Yeah. And it's always, there's always something else to accomplish in skating. You're never, y- you can like win everything and there's still going to be someone that can do something that you can't. But like my favorite success stories are the kids that maybe don't have the most talent and but that have just drive and heart, because at the end of the day I think that's what wins. And it's just the best feeling ever to see a kid that just is maybe struggling with something for a really long time and then is finally able to do it. And that is just I mean, to me, the kid that has the natural born talent and just does everything day one and stuff, that's cool. That's awesome. It's fun to teach that kid. But the kid that just like really, really works for it and then finally achieves something, that's those are the best moments to me.
Well, I think it's something kind of like the underdog, you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like maybe you could do it, but are you willing to put the work in? I think that, when you see somebody that is willing to get out, whether it's, I play guitar, write songs. So whether it was, sitting down and being like, all right, I'm practicing for 2 hours today with this guitar, or if it's, putting on skates and being, I'm going to try this trick until I don't fall on my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's something inside of you that just makes you like gravitate towards that. Like, oh, you're not a quitter. You know what I mean? Which I think is, very, very cool. And I can imagine working with kids, that's got to be something that you probably run across very frequently. It's just those people that are those kids that are like, no, I'm going to get this. Like, I'm here to figure this out. One thing I did want to ask, because I mean, I know with your background and stuff like that, we could talk about figure skating all day. But the other thing, and they touched a little bit on this in the show, and I'll be honest with you, I really wish we would have seen more of it as we kind of went through, because we saw it in the beginning when they were kind of talking about you and your life and things like that. But you are a very talented artist. I was looking at your work and I really like there is the chess set one that you did,
Oh yeah.
the black and white, and for some reason I don't know if it's just like the shadowing on it, or the like, because it's at an angle. It's not like looking like down on the board, but it's kind of angled from a perspective. And I was talking to my wife and I was like, I think I'm going to order that print because that would look cool up on the shelf. So but I wanted to ask, like, was that something from when you were very young as well, or did that kind of develop later in life? Like, when did you figure out that you had that skill?
Yeah. So two of my sisters are artists, and I grew up with two of my sisters just painting and entering art contests and winning and everything. And I never really tried it. I just kind of figured that's their thing. And skating's my thing, but I didn't think I was just very good at art. I didn't really try it. But it I kind of so I get a lot of people know that one of my younger sisters passed away, and she is one of the sisters that is a wonderful artist and was a tattoo artist and just a cool artist all around. But when she was going through some rough times, we bonded over like painting. And I'm just like, Brittany, I want to, kind of dabble in painting. I think it'd be fun. And we just had a couple nights where we were just painting just for fun. And that was within like the year before we lost her. And outside of just doing like some paint by numbers, some super basic stuff, hadn't really painted much before, but that ended up being what I turned to just cope with losing her. And I felt and still do feel connected to her when I paint. So that's really why I started painting. And then I just went like all in, and I'll go through some phases like now where I'm painting a lot and some where I'm not painting a lot. But after losing it, I feel like I would sometimes paint like 8 hours a day and just not put down a paintbrush. And yeah, that's kind of how I started painting. And so that was really just a couple of years ago.
Well, let me first say that I know that things like that, whether you've been on a TV show or people, who, people who know you and stuff like that, like whether you're in the public spotlight, that's never, I can't imagine that's anything that's ever like easy to talk about. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I will say, like, it kind of touches me in a way, because to know that you guys that you guys found that together. And then I think there's people who lose loved ones every day that don't have that link. So when you said like when you paint, you feel like you're connected to her. I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that wish that they had something like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it's just awesome to know that that's something that you have. And really I knew that you painted and things like that, but I didn't know that, that's how it came to fruition. So it's got to be nice to, if you're missing her or, it's a tough day or something, to be able to sit down and be like, we're going to spend time together in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And it's funny. I think it's good and bad, because like painting is, it's emotional for me, and usually good emotional, but when some people are like, you should sell your artwork, you should, do it professionally and everything. I don't think I can do that with painting, just because it's just one of those things that yeah, I just have like emotional ties to. So sometimes, I don't want to pick up a paintbrush and do it. So for me, I don't think it's something I would really consider doing professionally, at least not right now.
Right.
Maybe in the future.
Well, and I think it's good to have those things. I think it's good to have those things too that, like you enjoy doing, but I'm not a very religious person, but I am somebody who believes in the universe and that, things happen for a reason. And, so like maybe it's maybe it's not there for you to make money off of. Maybe it's there for you to say like, hey, I'm always going to be connected.
Right.
And I can imagine, like if there's a day that you're missing her extra hard, because I'm sure you're missing her every day. But I can imagine that sometimes picking up that paintbrush you may be like, why the hell am I doing this right now? Like I'm so like, you know what I mean? So it's, I don't know. It's just cool that you have that, you know what I mean? I wish and hope that there are other people out there who have something similar to kind of keep that connected. Now was Brittany the sister she was the sister that was on the show with you, right? Or was that a different sister?
That was Taj,
Taj. Yes. Okay.
my older sister. So Brittany passed away before the show.
Okay.
About a little over 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So she never got to, see my involvement in the show or anything like that. But I'd imagine she would have supported it, because she was always up for doing, I don't know, things differently and going outside the box and non-judgmental in all ways. So I feel like she was there in spirit.
Well, that's awesome. And I don't know, like that was one of the things kind of watching the show, that, if it seemed, I got the impression that, you were very close with your family. And I know people who've watched the show, they know that, you didn't, when you were going onto the show and things like that, you didn't really have that much now, I don't want to say that much family support, but the family support that you wish you would have had, which was, me and my wife were talking, and we thought we were both like, oh man, like we would be Mindy's sister in that situation. Even if the rest of the family was like, we don't think this is a good idea. Like, we would be the ones that were like, no, you got this. Like, you're an adult, make your own choices. Like, we love you. We support you. Like, we're here. I wanted to ask you, so, people watch this show and then you see that, people sign up and then you're matched with someone, things like that. But I've never really heard anybody talk about like kind of the process up to deciding that they're, going to be like, let me submit an application and see if I can get on the show. So were you a fan of the show previously?
No, I really wasn't. I think the first time I saw an episode of the show a few months before submitting my application. I was just visiting one of my good girlfriends in Florida, and it was the day after. It was New Year's Day, and I hadn't really watched a lot of reality TV show, and she just happened to have it on, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And she's like, this show called Married at First Sight. And she was like really invested, and I was just kind of like playing on my phone the whole time. But a few months later, another friend of mine, it sent me, she's like, hey, the show's coming to DC. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think that's that show that my friend was watching, a couple, months ago. And she's like, really, you should apply. You'd be perfect for this, and I definitely was at the place in my life where I wanted to get married and everything. So I said, okay, I'll submit an application, but they say 50,000 or more people apply. No one's going to call me or anything.
Right.
So when someone called me, I was like, what? Oh my God, this is real. And then that point, once I got a phone call and had like an initial Skype interview, I'm like, okay, I should do a little more homework about this show to see if it's like something that I really want to do. And so then I watched like bits and pieces of different seasons and just kind of, got the feel for it. And I decided that it was something that, I wanted to pursue. And I felt like I could see kind of like where a lot of relationships, were could mess up. And I felt like they call me Miss Optimistic on the show. and I like, even in the application process, I was like, no, it's not going to be me. I'm going to put in like a lot of effort. If I don't care if he's, physical attraction, I will be able to work past that if I'm not physically attracted to him. Like I was thinking of all of the negative things that could happen and how I could deal with it. But I guess I didn't think about the other way, like what to do if like I can deal with the negative things that I might not like about this person, but if they're not willing to do that with me, then
Right.
you can't have a relationship with one person. But,
yeah. I mean, there's two sides to the coin. It's like, I can only control what I'm going to do. I can't control,
right.
what it's crazy that the way that works. Like I'm someone who, especially recently with COVID and stuff like that, like I've dealt with a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I've had to tell myself is like, look, I can only control, if I put a mask on or if I can't control what other people are doing, I just need to make sure that I've got what I can do on lock.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can imagine, going into that, like you're thinking, well, this is what I'll do. This is what I'll do. Cause you haven't met this other person and you're not sure what to expect or what their thought process is going into it. And like now leading up to the show, cause I know you said like your friend, like, that they were filming and things like that, like were you dating or were you just like kind of like sick of the dating game? Or because I know me, like if my wife and I were to get divorced tomorrow, dating right now seems like so overwhelming that I would just be like, I'm by myself. I'm gonna get a lighthouse and live at the top all by myself, So I mean, like were you just kind of like done with the dating scene, or tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was I wouldn't say done with the dating scene, but discouraged from the dating scene. So I was still dating, and I was, doing the whole dating apps and trying to, meet people that way. And like I had maybe within like the year before the show, a couple very short-term boyfriends, like not, I wouldn't even say boyfriends, like just short-term flings or whatever, that, this is kind of out of boredom and, it's not going to go anywhere.
Killing time.
I was really excited to, like going through, that was the hardest, like couple months, the process going, up to being matched, because you're thinking, oh my God, this could be everything. And, you stop dating and stuff because you are so hopeful that you're going to be matched. And then there's, in the back of your mind, there's also like a lot of people do that and they don't get matched.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, so the day I found out I was matched, that was like one of the best days ever, because I did start just like completely banking on this opportunity and putting all my eggs in, that basket.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy to be like, okay, I'm being considered for this, but like kind of like what you said before, like, well, there's so many people,
Yeah.
there's no way.
And that's hard,
So
but but you don't want to like, I guess, you don't want to, if you're not matched, you don't want to waste that time of dating, but you also don't want to date with the possibility of maybe being married, because that's not really fair to the person that you might be dating. So it was a bit of a confusing time, but you know.
yeah, and I can just like, if it feels almost like it would be like, okay, well, right now, like, until I know what's going on after this crazy 8-week experiment, like my life is on pause. And then however it picks up after that 8 weeks. But I just, you got to shut everything down.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So what was the feeling like when you found out that you had been matched and that you were going to be on the show?
I was, oh my God, so crazy excited. I had like a little hunch that maybe I was going to be matched that day, but they don't tell you. They, say that they want to do like more background package of the people that, might are in consideration. But so they asked, if I would do some skating, and I said, of course. And then Dr. Viviana, she skates out to me, and oh my God, it was like when I saw Dr. Viviana skating out, my heart was just like beating so fast, and I didn't want to. I had no words. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? It felt like winning the lottery, and like having, I don't know, it just felt amazing.
That's all. That's got to be. I love Dr. Viviana. I love Pastor Cal. I love Dr. Pepper. She reminds me of my mom. They're like the same height, and so every time she's like, I listen to her like if it was my mom. So you find out what's the next step for you, because like now at this point that you've been matched, right? So now it's like you're going to start being filmed, right? Because you start being filmed like well before you actually meet your husband. So
Yeah.
was there an adjustment period for you for that? Because I mean, I can imagine for me, like, this is about as on film as I get, as doing something like this. So I can imagine, going from your normal life to like, I'm waking up and there's a bunch of people just like, hey, like, you look great,
Yeah.
like, what was that? How was that adjustment?
Yeah. I actually enjoyed it. And I think partially, well, I think the crew and like your producers can probably, I mean, this is the only thing I've done where I've had like a crew and producers and stuff. But I would think could make or break the experience, because my crew, like everyone, not just my producers, but like the audio guys, and I were so cool. And like, just I felt like they, I guess at first, like when you're talking about yourself and you don't really know your crew and stuff that well, it's like, you start crying, and it's like, is this audio guy over here gonna like think I'm super weird or whatever?
Right.
But you just, I'm pretty much an open book and didn't care. Like, I knew I was going on a reality TV show to be, myself. I'm not, and I knew that I was going to be filmed in my most vulnerable moments, and that's one thing that like I just said to myself, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to share who I am. I'm not going to try to be somebody else, because what's the point? Why go on a show and just try to be some perfect version of somebody?
Sounds familiar, like somebody else on that. We'll get to that in a minute. But so
Okay.
so like, so first of all, I have to tell you, one of my absolute favorite parts of the show was your friend. I believe her name is Jess. She was I think maybe I'm wrong. She's the one that, maybe I have her name wrong, but she's the one that did not let Zach get away with anything. And she's calling him out like nonstop.
I have a couple friends. So Jess was one of the other brides.
There's Jessica. Jessica and Austin. I'm trying to remember.
Is Asian friend?
No.
Or
no.
Mallory, probably.
Okay. Yes.
The one that started calling him Zach.
Yes.
My friends were just totally awesome. So when everyone's like, "Who was that awesome friend?" I'm like, that could have been any of them.
Yeah.
But Mallory, yeah.
Okay,
I just talked to Mallory on the phone right before this. That's funny.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, tell her she was, my wife and I both, we were like, this lady holds no punches, and we, pardon my language, but we fucking loved it. We were like,
oh my God.
She's so awesome.
No, Mallory, she plays roller derby. She's a vet herself. She was in the Navy.
Okay.
She's one of the coolest people ever.
No, that's so, yeah. I mean, you guys were doing, and I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead because there's so much to talk about, but like when you guys were all together at the bar and you were doing like the jumbo sized Jenga, and he's trying to be all nice to everybody, and she's like, "So why haven't you moved in yet? You fucking asshole!" Like, it was just like, oh my God,
yeah.
I loved her. But so you find out, right? They're filming. Now you got to go and you got to pick out like a wedding dress, and you've got like your friends there with you. Like what is going through your head? I know you talk about it on the show, but it's like internally, like what's that process like? Because again, like you're shopping for a wedding dress for somebody that you've never never even seen.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, wedding dress shopping, it was the second one I tried on. I just loved, and like I tried on a couple after that, and I'm like, I just knew that I wasn't going to beat the one that I found. So I'm just like, we don't even need to try on anymore. And I guess at that point, since you've never met the person, you pick out what you think, just suits you best, which I guess is what you do mostly anyway. But, I guess you would think if this is some, really conservative person and you have like some cleavage showing or something, like it's that going to be, but, yeah, no, I just went for what I felt like I was like really classy and nice and kind of elegant, and just what I would imagine kind of my dream wedding dress to be.
That's awesome. It's I can imagine like you don't want to be, marrying Mr. Fox News and you've got the wedding dress that has like the pasties on it or anything like
yeah.
That, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that like wouldn't really be my style anyway. I don't know. I didn't really have something in mind. I had like a lot of things that I did not want, like some certain cuts and stuff like that. I was open to things, but I'm glad that my friends were there. It was funny because they didn't show a lot of this, but my friends were like arguing over certain like details about like a veil or no veil, and they're like, no, she can't go down the aisle like that, and then other friends are like, oh yeah, she needs that and stuff, and I'm like, this is stressful. Right. So I am kind of glad. So my wedding preparation was only 2 weeks long, but thinking about having like wedding preparations that like, I don't know, what it was like for you to plan like a wedding over the course of, however long it normally is, but I'm glad it was condensed into 2 weeks, because the stress of all of that,
I'm right there with you. We like my whole family lives in Michigan. I'm from Michigan originally, and my wife is from Tennessee originally. So I relocated down here. So when we got married, my whole, she picked out her dress and I got, my tuxedo, but my whole family, I bought a suit, but my whole family came down from Michigan and we got married in a park with just our family. And then we threw a big party the next night. That was kind of like the reception. So we did like like watching people. And I think down the line, like if we do like a wedding vow renewal, we might do something a little bit, but I think we were just like, we just want to have fun and we want people to come and be able to dance. And so that's what happened. My wife danced all night and was having fun with everybody. And I was the one that was like, hey, thanks for coming. Good to see you. Like, really glad that you're here. but it was just nice to, have everybody there. And, that kind of segues into my next thing, but like, so the day's here, right?
Mhm.
And that's the one thing. And I mean, you said, I was called Miss Optimistic. Um, and like, that was the one thing I think that was so captivating about you, is that
Yeah.
like, even when you were nervous,
Mhm.
you were optimistically nervous. You weren't like, I can't do this. You're like, oh, this is, probably going to be hard, but like, I'm going through it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So like the days there, and again, I know it was a hard thing. It's, I was thinking about this when we were watching it, but like, you're about to meet this person that you're gonna be married with, and I'm or married to, and I'm sure in your head you're like, okay, the experts have matched us. Like there's no indication of anything that was going to happening, right? So it's
Mhm.
all, so you've got that excitement, but then at the same time, you know, a lot of your family didn't show up. So like,
Yeah.
what was like that? I mean, was that? I mean, I don't want to say like, was that hard for you? Because I know
Mhm.
the answer to that, but like, how did you balance it? You know what I mean? Because it's got to be like a crazy mixed wave of emotions.
Yeah. Well, I knew that they weren't going to come. Of course, like if they did decide to show up last minute, sure they'd be allowed in. But
Did
I
you
knew
hold
and
out hope a little bit? Like,
no. I mean, no. So I dealt with those emotions beforehand and decided that I that it was really important to me to have a great wedding and to show my new husband and his family and everything my spirit and who I am right off the bat. And I I was a little bit scared what they may think of my family not being there because I'm very close with my family. They did not want to be part of a reality TV show, but that doesn't make them bad people. And just because they didn't support this thing that I did. And this is also a lot of people I saw on, sorry to go off on
no,
this for a
please.
second, but like a lot of people I saw like on social media were just like were kind of saying oh, that's terrible that they didn't support her and everything like that. And I get how that seems, but like my whole family also like has gone through a lot recently, losing Brittany and my younger sister, she was pregnant then, and like it was just family was just going through like all kinds of things. So I I I understand their choice to not want to be part of the show, and I would just hate for people to think that they're like not supportive of me just because of that. So
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think especially, because at the end of the day, it's still a TV show, right?
yeah.
So like, you've got people out there that are watching it and they don't know you as, and honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm super happy that I have you on today, is because
Mhm.
like again, like we were super team Mindy, like we're like, okay, well, everything's gonna work out because she's like the most optimistic person ever. But to kind of be able to sit down and get to know you in a different way than like I'm just watching you on TV, and social media is like such a double-edged sword, because there's just
Mhm.
people, like people that would say stuff on social media who would never say anything close to that to your face, or
Mhm.
it's just, I don't know. And it is, I think it's important that people know that, like, hey, just because they weren't there didn't mean that I wasn't loved or I wasn't supported. It's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want, a bunch of cameras in my house and, putting all
Yeah.
my, it's like it's like, the way that I kind of equated in my head is like, you break up with somebody and then you're the person throwing all their stuff on the lawn, and now the whole neighborhood knows like, oh, things aren't so well over at the Joneses. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like,
Right.
there's some.
Like yeah.
Yeah, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, but like if you just think like when like I made the decision to get married at first sight and go on the reality TV show and everything, and of course I wanted my family to be part of it, but I I get it. Just because I made this decision doesn't mean that, like, even if everybody's families, people are typing about, so and so's mother and stuff on Twitter and stuff like that. And I don't think it's, if people don't want to put their lives out there, even as a supporter, of somebody else, you shouldn't be forced to be on a TV show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, we're all good now. It was, of course, some drama around that time, but I do have an awesome family.
Now, when things were kind of going, when things were kind of rough, because obviously for people who watch the show, like I'm just gonna say I think you got a really raw deal, and it really, like, my wife and I, we were just kind of like brokenhearted. But like, were you still able to reach out to your family, like if you needed somebody to talk to, like were they still there as even though they weren't participating, still there as kind of like a support system?
Yes and no. So there's also, what's great about having your family involved is you, of course, you can't have secrets leak before, because everything's filmed before the show airs. So when your family is involved in the filming process, everyone signs, NDAs, and you're really not supposed to talk about your relationship status with people that have not signed those NDAs. So I was very, I did not say much to my family about what was going on. I mean, they did know that it didn't work out with Zach and I, but and of course I trust my family. I know that they wouldn't, go
They're
telling.
not running to
But
TMZ like, let me tell you about my daughter.
right, exactly. But it is, it is a serious thing that we have to take seriously. And yeah, so there were a few reasons, and my family, they also at the time didn't really want to hear about it. So luckily I had such a big support network of friends, so I was able to lean on them. And now I do talk about this stuff like openly with both of my parents and younger sister and everything. And
That's awesome.
so
Yeah, and I was really glad that your older sister was there, like, to, because I mean, like, and she was so warm to just kind of be like, no, like she's my sister, like I'm here to support her. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's like, I'm the oldest of four. So yeah, I can't imagine doing something like that and not having family in my corner. So I'm like, to have her there, I'm sure must have helped,
Oh,
a
for
lot.
sure, for sure.
So, well, let me ask you this, right? So kind of get to the big, like the big reveal moment. So, you walk down, you see Zach Justice, which that's the only way I can say his name. And as much as I wanted things to work out for you, I'm going to say this: I am very happy that your name is not Mindy Justice. I will.
Oh boy.
I will.
Oh my God. It's so funny seeing all this, everyone doing hashtags justice for Mindy. Like, I'm like, like saying, yeah, we need justice for Mindy. No, no.
No, Mindy's good. It was rough, but yeah, no, it's so I will tell you, I'm a straight white man, but I can recognize and appreciate a good looking dude. And when you first see him on the show, you're like, oh yeah, he's a handsome guy. Like, what was and I know you kind of touched on this on the show, but like now with like hindsight, like you see him, you see him coming down. You see him standing there. Like, what is the thought process in your head? Because you look like you were like, oh yeah, like, man biscuit, I'm cool with this.
Yeah, no, it was just like I did not have any expectations looks wise. Like, I actually thought about pretty much every guy throughout, like, Married at First Sight that I've seen, and like, would I be mad appearance wise if I was matched with anyone? Like, no, I think Married at First Sight, like, most of the guys on there are attractive-ish, or not unattractive by any means. And so I wasn't like looking for a hot dude, but like I walked down and I'm like, I'm certainly not mad. And I'm actually like, I was a little bit shocked that it was like this like typical kind of hot guy. I don't know, from like what I described to the experts, I said I'm not one that like is really cares about a typical attractiveness on the outside. But no, I wasn't mad about it. And I was like, he's really handsome. This is a great start, because I can, say for certainty that I do find him attractive right off the bat, looks wise.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be. I can imagine that takes off because, like you said, you're going through and you're like, well, what if I'm not attracted to him? How will I like deal with this?
Mhm.
So I'm sure in the moment it's kind of like, whew, okay, like that's one thing off my plate. Now let's just
Right.
kind of make sure that he doesn't have the personality of a dish towel. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
so that I mean, you guys you guys do it right. You get married at first sight, and
Yeah.
then right after you guys kind of get some alone. What are your first impressions like when you're finally getting a chance to like kind of just sit and talk?
So throughout wedding day, there's like zero alone time where there's no cameras. So with alone time, this was still like, with cameras. So like right after the marriage ceremony, we, I guess I don't know what really happened to all the guests at this point. Hopefully they were like giving them alcohol or something, because
Here's a
Zach and
Trisket.
I,
They'll be
we,
down a little bit.
yeah, so they took us to, it was in a hotel, to just a suite, I guess. And we just kind of had like, yeah, our first conversation. And I was nervous, but I felt like it went well. Um, like first date kind of well. Like, okay, like this, I'm enjoying this conversation. He seemed cool. Like I liked what I was hearing so far. I will say that he seemed to be a little bit reserved, which at that point you just met this person, they don't know who you are, so that's completely normal. Um, but he was a complete gentleman to me, and made me feel at ease, and it was nice.
Yeah, and I like, I remember from the show, like you guys were doing your wedding photos, and
Hmm.
like he was saying like how happy he was with who they matched him with, and like kissing on you and stuff like that. So like,
Yeah.
and maybe this is I've always been like the chubby funny guy. You know what I mean? So I've never like I've lived one side of the coin where someone like Zach is on the opposite end of that coin. Like, the guy like Zach is the guy who used to like shove me in a locker when I was in high school. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I'm
That's
totally cool with it.
terrible.
It's fine. It is what it is. But um when I first saw him, I was like, part of me was like, I don't know. Like he seems like maybe he's here for something for him. And then, I first impressions, and I use the term impression because impression can change, right? So like
Hmm.
I've never met the guy, but I've seen him on TV. The show was how many episodes at like an hour and a half long. Like I've invested a lot
Hmm.
of time into this person that I've never met, right?
Yeah.
So like first impression, I was like, this dude seems like kind of an asshole a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not trying to badmouth anybody,
Yeah.
but as the show went on, I was like, maybe my impression doesn't need to be changed, right? Because like, that's kind
Mhm.
of it's kind of
Yeah.
because so what I wanted to ask you about is like the big first thing that happens between you guys is you guys get married. He's saying how happy he is to be matched. He's kissing the wedding. Now his family, and correct me if I'm wrong, like his sister and his like mom stuff, they all seemed like very nice, like down
Awesome
to earth
people.
people. I mean,
Awesome
do
people.
you still talk to any of them, or is it like just
Um,
bye bye justices, Supreme
no,
Court
his
justices?
his family. I think his. Um, well, I only met his family that weekend, that wedding day, and the next day I had brunch with some of his family members. But they were so good to me. And one of his sisters still reaches out a little bit, but I am, you know, I just like I need support from my family. I think he needs support from his family, and I would never want to get in the middle of that. And I just like to have a relationship with his family right now. I as much as I think they're great people, I don't know how appropriate that would be since Zach and I aren't necessarily great friends now. I
Yeah,
think,
you wouldn't want to be at like the 4th of July barbecue. Hey,
yeah,
bud.
yeah.
They just
So
invited me. It's good to see you. How you been?
exactly.
So, well, yeah, because I mean, I know there was even a point in the show where his sister was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, you gotta
Mhm.
like make a choice, commit."
Right.
But like it seems like everything's going okay, and then you guys get on the honeymoon, and then there's this big moment where he's like, "Well, I'm just," he says that he's not attracted to you,
Mhm.
and I know that again, you've kind of talked about it on the show, but with it kind of being hindsight, like looking back at it now, like what about that? Like, what about those emotions? The feeling, like the processing of that. What sticks out? Like, is it? I just like I just can't imagine. Because first of all, and I say this again, not to objectify, I'm not trying to be like rude or sexist or anything anyway, but like you're like a beautiful, very attractive woman.
Thank you.
So to hear that,
Mhm.
it must have been, first of all, it's a complete dick thing to say, like
Mhm.
just hands down, but like to hear it, like how do you process something like that?
Well, the honeymoon wasn't the first time that he said it, and this kind of like I don't want to be unfair to him, and there, but I'm sure he has his opportunities to talk about stuff that happened behind the scenes, without cameras as well. Um, there were a few days in between the wedding and the honeymoon, and he said we had like a little meeting with like after we were meeting with some of the producers from the show, and they just kind of um, basically encouraged us to be ourselves and checking in, making sure we're okay, pretty much. And Zach said, we're sitting right there on the couch together, and he just said, "Yeah, it's just hard for me right now. Like I'm in a position I'm like having to like being forced to build an attraction to somebody." And so that's like I had a little like, my heart sank a little bit like shit. He just said he's feeling like he's being forced to build an attraction to me. That sucks. And so I just like didn't address it. I'm just like, I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that. And then it by the time like when you saw me like going out and crying to my little diary cam camera, like, oh my God, it was him. He, had made it clear, a few times he's not feeling any, physical attraction to me, and it's just hard for him to get past that at all and to see anything. And so then I was just like upset because it's
Well,
I'm
rightfully so. I mean, not to interrupt you, but like that's
yeah,
definitely something that like you
but
you
I
have every right to be upset about.
yeah, I wanted to be strong enough to where like I'm confident. I'm confident in my own skin. I like the way I look, and then it's just, but there's a point when, that does take a dig at not like how you feel about yourself, but how you feel about your like Zach then kind of started to say, well, she's not confident in herself. And like, I never felt like there was a point where I wasn't confident in myself. I feel like there were many points where I was not confident in this relationship or
Right.
either one of our parts in it. But like, and that is based on, his all this focus on attraction and stuff like that. And I'm like, how can you expect me to say I feel super confident right now? I would feel super confident standing next to my friends or myself or another guy that had some nice things to say about me. But no, what was frustrating too was like, okay, you keep saying you're not attracted to me. Can you turn to me and say something you do appreciate about me instead of saying just saying what you don't?
Right.
Um,
And I think the thing that bothered me too, and I think I don't know if it's intentional or not, but they captured it really well on the show. Zach Justice can say, he can take 45 minutes to say something that should take 10 seconds.
Mhm.
So when he was trying to explain his thought process on the show, I'm like, dude, just say what you're thinking and let it be over, because it to me, and I don't know, it felt like something that would happen at Guantanamo Bay. Like they would just bring him in and be like, I want you to explain something to him. Just talk like you normally talk. And then eventually they're going to crack and tell us where the weapons of mass destruction are, because they just can't listen to you say these things anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, it seemed like going through that became very, not even clear, but it became very apparent that you realize very quickly that he had a problem being clear and concise about what he was saying. Mm-hmm. Does that sound fair?
Yeah. That's it. And I still don't understand his communication style. I think, was he trying to beat around the bush to try to spare my feelings in some ways? Was he, my theory is, and anything's possible, I just feel like he is a confused person, or at least that's what I get from him. Because why a person like him would think this show, it's fine if you're the kind of guy or kind of girl that you need your partner to look a certain way, that's fine. But why would this be the show for you? So I'm just very confused why he would do the show, period. And his explanations behind everything are I just don't understand much about.
This is kind of my take, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not. I feel, and your friends, I think, did a great job calling him out on this and being like, hey dude, are you just here to try to get your modeling career and your fitness career off the, because what it felt like to me and my wife when we were watching the show was that this guy is clearly here because he wants to get himself out there, mm-hmm. but he also doesn't want to look like the jackass that's clearly there to get himself out there. Mm-hmm. So anytime it was time to explain himself, it was, well, it's this, but I'm having to so how do you manufacture attraction? And then, I want to do this. I want to move in, and my acid wash jeans would look great in her dresser. But that's another, they don't even get me started. Yeah, that Mumford hat. I was like, you got to be playing banjo in some indie band somewhere. I'm sorry. I have a lot of feelings about that gentleman. I don't know. He probably won't listen to this, but whatever. But I through the whole process, I was like, thank God, she has the friends that she has, because it was they put him on blast. And then him, he was the only guy on the show who had his Instagram open and was like, yeah, check out what I'm doing. And it felt very much like he was marketing himself through social media as the show progressed. I mean, and I mean, I know you're probably not in a situation where you'd be, could agree or disagree, but it's just, again, we were watching the show and we're like, man, Mindy just seems so, there's a lot of times you watch shows and you can kind of, it seems like people are putting on a front, right? The person that you were married to. And then you get people like you who are like, oh, they're here because they, it's not like you were trying to push your figure skating coaching, coach business to, right. I'm going to open my own sports complex. Just, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So did you have any, was there any concern about that as time passed? Like did you suspect that maybe he was there for the wrong reason? Because the thing that at the same time made my wife and I kind of fall in love with you on the show, but at the same time was heartbreaking. Like we were literally yelling at the TV at points. We're like, what are you can like, you deserve so much better than this guy. Like we're, you know what I mean? Like, was there any point where you were like, maybe he's not here to like, he's not here for the same reasons I am?
Oh, 100%. And that's still something that I'm never going to know the true answer, because he's never going to say like, oh yeah, I wanted to promote my fitness brand or whatever it is. But he, um, one red flag, I guess, was, and this was a little further along. I mean, before we called it quits, but like further along, he he was telling me that he had this great dinner with these people that were investing in his brand. He was all about just like building his brand, and he didn't make that like a secret to me that he was, building his brand. And I guess like there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're, going to do with your life. But there is something wrong with that if you're using the show and using a person and, for that, opportunity. So I don't know. And that's why I think he's confused, because if he really thought that this show would help him build that kind of brand in a good way, I like obviously he didn't think it through. So it's very, very confusing to me.
Yeah, and part of me also wonders, because I went back and rewatched some episodes because we haven't watched it since the season came out. But, part of me also wondered exactly what you said. Like if he came into it like, I'm going to use this show as a a stepping stone or a platform to get myself in the public eye, but then once you get into the show and you're like, oh, like everything I do is affecting a person, you know what I mean? And that's kind of why I'm of the mind of where like he knew what he was doing, but he didn't want to seem like he would be the guy to do that. Cause his whole thing was like, I just, I genuinely, I want that connection to grow organically. I'm not going to spend any time with her and I'm not going to move in with her, but organically that will happen. And it just seemed like he wasn't willing to put in the work.
Right.
So one thing, I did want to ask you about, because obviously people, the big storyline, and not even storyline, but the big like arc or the reveal was that he had been texting and talking and Instagramming with someone that you thought was one of your best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine, like, because the crazy thing too is that was after like he accused you of doing something shady, right? Like that dinner where he was like, well, I know what you did. And then he like wouldn't tell you what you did.
Right. And that drove me absolutely crazy. And actually that night is when, it is when I found out about initially found out about his communication with Lindsay. And of course and I was not being filmed like the moment I found out, because I got met. That was the night that Zach was like accusing me of whatever. I got like, that was the first and only time that I lost it a little bit. Like with, I did with, I was like, I want to talk to, the top executive producer of this show because it's all bullshit. And I was so mad because they showed him like, questioning me for like a couple minutes, but that went on forever. Him just saying like, there's something, and I'm like sitting here about ready to, and there, all this is being filmed and like about ready to guess like my the worst things I've ever done in my life, like
to someone who's still like practically a complete
do?
stranger, right? Like you're like
he's what he was probably like waiting for me to say something so he would, have something on me. I don't know, but I was actually very angry that night, and so we were supposed to have more to the anniversary or whatever, but I'm just like, I cannot be around this guy right now. And my friends picked me up from there, and and one of one of my friends picked me up, and the other, Shani and Natalia, and we ended up meeting back at the apartment. And I guess they were talking with, one of them was talking to Lindsay on the phone saying, oh my God, shit's hitting the fan with Zach and Mindy right now. And I don't exactly know how it happened, but like Lindsay thought she got in trouble. Like she told Zach something or whatever. So she like outed herself for having this like relationship or whatever with Zach. Like, oh my God, this is my fault. And so then it just became their web of lies. It was terrible. Like we found out more and more, and they didn't even have their own story straight, and they deleted all their text messages. And but there were plans for him to visit her, and I guess at one point after all of this kind of blew up, they agreed to stop talking for the next couple of weeks until filming was over. And yeah, I'm just like,
I remember that. I was like, that's super shady. Like, like that's
oh my God.
And the thing I think that kind of broke my heart about it was that, again, watching you were someone who was very like, listen, I'm committed. Like if he needs time before he moves in, if we just want to spend time together, kind of let things grow. I understand that maybe he needs time. Like you were so optimistic and kept giving him chances. And then to be put in that situation, because if you're anything like me, if someone is like, I know what you did, I start going through my head and going, well, like, did I do something? Like,
yeah.
And then my wife is completely the other way. If she's like, if you want to see me do something that I didn't do, accuse me of doing it, because then like that if you're going to just accuse me of doing something, I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So it's you start running through your head like, well, like what could I have possibly done? And then if I remember correctly, it was something that was like very minuscule, like your like ex-boyfriend or something had texted you or something like that, but it wasn't anything like, especially looking at the side-by-side comparison of what he was doing versus what he was accusing you of doing, it was like absolutely nothing. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, no, but this is he knew about that. So an ex-boyfriend, when we were in Panama, called me because like he was like, "What the fuck? I heard you got married." and
At first sight.
So my phone rang. I didn't know who it was because, like, I guess when you're in a different country, like it comes up as unknown, so family or whatever. So I picked it up, and it was him. And I'm like, "Ooh, yikes! This is awkward." Yeah, I got married on a TV show or whatever. And he's, was like, kind of, I guess, like a little pissed about it, but it is what it is. And I told Zach about that, like right after that happened. I'm like, so just to let you know, ex-boyfriend contacted me today, and he's like, okay, don't care. Now, like, what, I don't know if Lindsay told him something like else or whatever, but he told me that's what that was about. And I'm like, okay, well, you knew about that. And the ex was like, wanted to confront me and say, when are you flying back? I'm going to come get you from the airport. And I'm like, absolutely not,
Like, yeah, I'm married, bro.
Yeah, married. Was going to go home with Zach, but he didn't want to do that. So my friend Shani picked me up and went back to my house.
So, like, let me ask you this, because it seemed like there was many times where you were at the point where you were like, yeah, I'm just going to call it quits. But that optimism kind of kept coming through. And again, I think it was something that really like, I mean, I know for us and probably for a lot of other viewers, I think it's the reason that like so many people fell in love with you on that show was that you were just like, you were taking it was kind of like you were like Married at First Sight's Rocky. Like you were taking a beating, but like, damn it, your heart was in it and like you weren't going to give up. You know what I mean? So when you finally made that decision to say like, listen, because I think what was beautiful about it was the fact that, and truly what I think was probably inspiring to a lot of people is that it felt like you were like, listen, I know my value. I know what I'm worth. I know what I deserve. And I'm not getting that from you. I don't need to wait until decision day. Right. Like you are obviously someone who is not the person that I'm supposed to be spending my life with. So when you made that decision, was it, I mean, I'm somebody that like when I'm done with someone in my life, it's very easy for me to just turn that switch and be like, okay, cool. Like I don't need to see you anymore. Was it like that for you, or like were there moments where like you maybe like in your own head kind of faltered, like am I being extreme, or like once it was done, it was done? What was that kind of like?
Yeah, no, once it was done, it was done. And I think that that's why it did take me a little while, because I have been like that, like in other relationships before, where I think I pulled the plug like too early, or when I still maybe had some doubts, and then I regretted it, maybe got back together with the person. And I did not want to do that with Zach. So times when I thought about just ending it, first of all, I communicated my doubts to him, and he said he wanted to work on things, and it was like through text messages and stuff. And I'm just like, I kind of feel like walking away a few times, and he's, said he didn't want me to and wanted to try. And so I'm like, okay, I should see this through. The experts matched me with this guy. I should really see this through. So yeah, when I wanted to be 100% certain that when I said I was done with the marriage, that there would be no entertaining going back. And I think a lot of viewers were, at times like, oh, she's being so weak, she should end this and stuff. But that was kind of my mentality. I didn't want to end something that I might have any kind of weakness to go back and entertain that idea again. So when I sat down with Zach and said, like, this is over, it was 100% completely over. No chance in hell ever happening again.
Well, and I think, what you just said, where the viewers are like, oh, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this to yourself? And I what that did for me personally was, I think it drastically contrasted the type of people that, again, like watching the show, I was like, okay, I know what kind of person Mindy is. Zach is an enigma wrapped in like a leather jacket. You know what I mean? Like it's like, where you came in and you were very like, listen, like, I know that this isn't going to be easy. Like this is an experiment. You have to be committed. And that's what I got from you up until the point that you were like, okay, this is my breaking point. I'm like, obviously this experiment has failed. I don't need the full time. Mm-hmm. Where watching him, it almost felt like he was like, well, like, come on, I want to work it out. Cause if we, try to work it out, then I'm on TV for like 20 more minutes every episode, you know what I mean? As opposed to, because it seemed like, once you were done, like, the other couples went on like, couple getaway and stuff like that. And I mean, like, you guys obviously didn't go. So there wasn't, they were still checking in with you periodically, but it like, that kind of fell back until decision day. And then, everybody else kind of stepped up front. So I just kind of got the sense that he was like, well, if I, kind of keep dragging her back into my shitty web, like maybe I can get a little bit more screen time and get people going to my Instagram. And I will say one of my favorite things why that show was going on is because he was the only person that didn't leave his or didn't put his Instagram on private. You could go and read the comments that everybody was saying to him. Oh, wow. I would never post anything hateful. I'm not that guy, but it was very funny, especially being someone who is such a fan of yours and feeling like you were mistreated. It was nice to see the internet knock him down a peg or two. I was like, bro, turn off your comments. You can do that. It's very simple. So
he's the kind of guy though that like I don't think he cares. I think he has like I hate to throw around the word narcissist, but like I think he thinks like so highly of himself that shit doesn't bother him at all.
well, and I loved how your friends were like, hey, like how does he know that you're attractive to him? You know what I mean? Like he had that vibe of like, oh, any woman would be lucky to be with. And you know, like my wife is, I definitely married up, and luckily for me, she likes soft, pudgy dudes with beards. You know what I mean? Like I did okay. I found the right person for me, but I can't imagine going through and just being like, yeah, any woman would be lucky to be with me. You know what I mean? Like I don't. I think narcissist is definitely a good way to maybe put that into again. I don't know the guy. These are just, you know, based on what I've seen on TV, but it's hard to think that it would be something other than that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do want to talk about decision day and you know what you've been up to you know, since the show wrapped. But before we talked about that, I wanted to know, like, you know, it seemed like you girls all get, you know, you, Taylor, Mika, Katie, and Jess, you guys all got pretty close. I mean, you all got matching tattoos, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's got to be awesome. Oh yeah, was it does it say season 10 on it? Is that what it was?
10.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you showing them off. Like, yeah, we watched like the reunion afterward and everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I may be just guessing here, but it seems like one of the people you were the closest to was Jess. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're still great friends.
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite moments of the show was the day that you guys both got married, and I'm sure you've talked about this 100 times, but when you've run into each other in the bathroom and you just both look so excited for each other, and you know, was like it seemed like the girls all got along, and obviously there was the date with Katie and Zach that happened down, which I was like, this is ridiculous. But you know, like, was there anybody for you other than Zach on the show that was hard for you to get along? Because you seem like the kind of person who like would get along with anybody. Like, was there any moments like where you had a hard time being around anybody else in the cast or anything like that?
Brandon, yeah. He said he kind of had a moment at the end of the honeymoon where he went into some kind of rage and said some pretty disrespectful stuff to me. And yeah, after that, I don't really like the guy. I'm
Now,
not a fan of his.
Like, I know on the show that they showed him, you know, saying stuff about Taylor and like the trip and the show or whatever, but I didn't realize like he had like said stuff to you personally. Like that would have, because if you,
we
I'm
were
sorry,
on
go ahead.
a bus, like headed to like a small bus going back to the airport, about ready to go home, and he just, you know, started going off completely, and he said like he hey Mindy, I know you like black guys. I got a whole bus or a whole car full of my friends picking me up from the airport, and since it's not working out with that guy, come with us. And like I was sitting right next to Zach, and I'm like, what? And yeah,
Yeah, not surprised to left that one out. I don't know how well that would have went over on TV.
I don't that well, we weren't being
Oh, there was no filming at that point
on the bus ride to the airport, but like
now what was Zach like? What did Zach say anything? Because like,
no,
if that were my wife, I'd be like, hey, listen, man, I know we just met, but you need to shut your fucking mouth, because you know, you don't talk like, you know, even if it was regardless of being like, oh, this is, you know, my wife, but like you don't talk to a lady like that, regardless of what the relationship is.
No, Zach and I, we were sitting next to each other, like towards the back, and God, some of the other guys. Zach said nothing. I mean, he did like look at me like, that was weird. Are you okay? Like, I think if it wasn't like Brandon was like
Getting
physically going up to
physical.
me or something, it was just like he said, and then I completely ignored him and he didn't say anything after that. So yeah, I the state that Brandon was in, I mean, I don't blame Zach for not wanting to like get up and like make it worse.
Right.
So yeah, but no, Zach, he just said like, no, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I guess. So yeah, he just, I don't know. He struck me as an odd one, and
Yeah,
I
that was
just
another one that was really weird to me, is like you don't want production being in your, because that was his big thing through the whole show, was like he didn't want to deal with production and stuff like that. But like, again, just like what you said about Zach, like you signed up for a
yeah,
show to be on TV. So I don't understand, why that would be a big shock to you,
yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, and I never got to know him well or anything. But just that's the way. Like, no, I'm not. As someone that like says that to me, I mean, you're.
yeah, why would I want to get to know you well? That's not
I don't
something
want to
that you
spend
should
time
say.
with. Exactly.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, is there anybody kind of looking back, like any of the couples that like you wish would have made it, or you thought were going to make it, and then like were surprised that didn't?
Um. Well, like I'm not surprised. I guess like looking at everyone's journey where everyone is now, I am so glad that even though 4 out of 5 of the couples failed, I think it was all worth it just for Jess and Austin
They're
because they
so
are
cute.
perfect. I love both of them, and together they are just like they are for sure meant to be.
They remind me of, you ever see those pictures where it's like a dog and a kitty cat like in a basket and they're like loving on each other, like
Yeah,
that kind of cute. I
yeah,
was like, oh, okay. Like you guys have definitely, like, it seemed from the beginning that they were going to be the ones that like
yeah.
going to be it would be hard for them not to work out.
Yeah. And I did think that Katie and Derek had like a really good start. Um they I don't know. They like from seeing them interact and everything on the honeymoon, they seem to vibe really, well together and everything, but um you, I guess some stuff happened there, and
Yeah.
I don't want to comment too much on other
Right.
relationships that I don't, know the ins and outs of. But yeah, I guess I was a little disappointed to see the downfall there because I thought they had a lot of potential. But
Yeah, it was very strange, because I felt we were watching, and it seemed like Derek's big thing was he had too many dreams. Like he's like, I want to write a Christmas song, and I want and she's like, she just was like, you have too many dreams. And so it felt like, my wife and I were talking, it was like, it felt like a very strange thing to like cause so much friction, where it's like, hey man, like
yeah,
let's do some of these, and if we don't get to them, like we don't get to them. Um
yeah,
now, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, like just my take on that though. I think like it's possible and kind that there was some like tension building up, and
Hmm.
maybe it wasn't all just about, because I think the same thing, like that's cute that he has like a lot of dreams, but maybe there was kind of some tension up building up over some other things, and don't know that like for a fact. That's just kind of what I would guess, because I don't know why um someone would get that upset about someone.
Yeah, I think the bottom line was like, she was trying to speak to his maturity. Like, you can't, like, you have the dreams of a boy, but like, I need someone to be a man. And
Yeah,
I think for me, and watching with my wife as well, we were both kind of like, well, like, you can be an adult and be like, hey, I'd like to travel. I
right,
want to have a bunch of kids. But, I think it was just more of like, are you emotionally where I would want somebody to be, or like, on that maturity level that like I'm expecting, as opposed to, I think is what you said before. It's like you can control everything that you're thinking, but you can't control what that other person is going to be like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah.
maybe she didn't come in being like, he wants to go skydiving over Kilimanjaro and write
Right.
Christmas songs. And you know what I
Exactly.
mean? So I thought that was so cute. I was like, dude, let the guy write a Christmas song. Like he
Yeah.
wants to have a bunch of kids and write Christmas songs. Well, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, I'm guessing, you and Lindsay probably not talking very much nowadays.
Not at all.
Does that, I mean, I can imagine after something like that, it would almost be like the thing that I could liken it to, I think would be like having like a tumor removed after you go through something where you're like, I just feel like so much better. Like I'm healthier. I feel better with it. Like has she tried to reach out to you or mend that bridge and you're just like,
she sent me a text a few months ago and said, like, an apology text, how bad she feels. She thinks about it every day and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I hope you're getting the support you need. And that was it.
see, that's what I've loved about you on the show. And secretly I like, of course you're going to be the bigger person and be like, I hope you get the help you need. But like in my heart, I want you to be like, no, like rip into her, tear her apart, make her cry. You know what I mean? But that's not who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think also she's a pretty fragile person. And I know you know, she has somebody that does something like what she did either doesn't give a shit at all or is going through some emotional problems. And I think with her it's the second, because she has been a good friend to me in the past before, and I think that she's just kind of lost it, and who knows what she's going through. And yeah, she did a pretty horrible thing, but that is, on national television now, and that's something that
Yeah, the internet let her have it too. So it's,
yeah.
it's like that's one of those things it's gonna be tough to live down. And I think too with this show, like there are seasons of the show that stick out because of the people that were on it.
Mhm.
Like, I can think of certain seasons where I remember one couple very specifically, but I couldn't tell you anybody else who was in that
Yeah.
because, it was like 3 years ago where I, I feel like for better and for worse, like your storyline is and I hate even saying storyline, but the way that they let the episodes unfold and you watch, I guess your journey is the better way of saying it. Your journey, I think, is going to be one that sticks with people. Season 11 is going to come out, and there's going to be people that stand out there. But I think your journey, your courage, your bravery. You're saying like, hey, I deserve better than what I'm getting. I think that's something that's going to last with people, for years and years and years and years.
Oh, that's cool.
I wanted to ask you this. So like, how did like the last thing one of the last things I want to talk to you about was decision day, right? Because I can imagine after having that time apart, like decision day, were you just ready to go in and be like, I want a divorce? Like I don't need to talk because it seemed like all of the it seemed like Pastor Cal, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Viviana, they were all like, you're doing the right thing. Like just so, I mean, what was that feeling like, having to like sit down, be in a room with them? Like kind of walk me through that a little bit.
I mean, honestly, I didn't think much of it. I wasn't nervous. I was just like, all right, I just got to do this to wrap it up. And like at that point, I guess Zach and I hadn't talked or anything for a couple weeks, and I it was good. It gave me a little time to emotionally get like get to the point of just not being invested at all in it, because even like after the night where I called it off, with Zach, a few weeks, before that, I was still like upset, not thinking that I did the wrong thing by any means, but just like, you know, kind of just upset over how everything turned out. But I walking into decision day, I'm like, I feel way better than I did at like the beginning of this experiment, like on the honeymoon and stuff. I feel free. I feel like out of what would have been a very toxic relationship if it continued. So I felt great about just sitting down and saying, "Yep, tried this. Glad I tried it. Would do it again with obviously with somebody else, but this did not work out for me."
Yeah, now that's an interesting question, because if they were to come to you and say, "Hey, like Mindy, we're doing Married at First Sight second chances," like would that? I mean, looking at your experience now, and seeing how it worked for like someone like Austin and Jessica, for example, like, do you think you would have you think you would be inclined to be like, yeah, like let's give it another shot? Or do you think, or I mean, I know it's probably, nothing that I mean, I don't know if you put any thought into it or anything like that, but I, was just wondering if it's, would you put your faith in the experiment again?
I would have a different mindset about it. Like I think I just like going in just thought, oh, if I do my part and I'm awesome at this and I really like I can hold up this relationship no matter what happens. But that's obvious, that's impossible for one person to do. So I think to say, yeah, I can do my part, but not to the point of compromising myself or my beliefs or my, what I stand for to try to make this work, because then that becomes unhealthy. So yeah, I would do it again. It would the only sorry, I'm like thinking as I'm like trying to answer that question.
No, please.
The only the marriage does last way beyond the show. The legalities, marriage is not.
Well, I was going to ask, because you just put on Instagram, like you're still trying to get divorced from this dude, right?
Yeah. And luckily we're making progress there. So that's something that, like, if it was like another legal marriage, I would need some time before doing that, because
Right.
that's a bit of a headache. But I mean, doing a show and trying, to find, that person, I still have faith in that idea, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, if you did it again, and if you were matched with somebody, because it's weird. It's one of those things where it's like you could see. I think that's one of the things that captivates people, is that like you can see like how it would fail or how the matches wouldn't work, but then you also see how special it is when it does work. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure most of the people who have said yes on decision day, I believe a majority of them are still together. Obviously there's like your Katie and Derek exceptions and stuff like that, but one of the things that like one of the things again that I really admired about you on the show is that it was almost like you were showing people that like you can know your worth without having to have somebody by your side. And I think that's almost that's, to me, I think that's almost like a bigger takeaway. You know what I mean? Because you see a lot of people that are just like, I'm just, I'm settling down. I don't want to be alone, blah, blah, blah. And like, maybe you came to it in a place where it's like, I want to find somebody to be with and I'm ready to settle down. But I think especially for, young women who are watching the show, like they're like, oh, like, I just think about somebody who may have their own Zach Justice in their life, and then watch you and they're like, guess what, dude? Like, you know what? I don't need to carry you on my back. I don't need to, I watched, I saw somebody like Mindy. I know what I'm worth. get out of here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Has anybody like reached out to you or anything? I mean, like, have you heard that from anyone or, I mean, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
it's lovely to get, those messages that, a lot of people have reached out and just said that they've gone through, similar things. So it was like really nice to watch, my experience and just be able to relate to it. And I've had even some people reach out saying like, watching my story, gave them, a different perspective and hope and kind of help with what they're dealing with. And that's pretty awesome. I didn't think that would come from, this experiment at all, but that's definitely a positive takeaway.
I mean, that's got to feel good just to, because again, you do a show like this and you're looking for something for yourself, but I think like very much to like your teaching, like
Mhm.
with your figure skating teaching, it's, I'm teaching these people, they're taking something from it and then they're making the decision to, am I going to put it to work and be better? And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool that you were able to do the same thing through this television show for a lot of people that you do every day for, kids that you teach.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask, I know we've been going here for about 2 hours and I really appreciate you investing in and hanging out with me for that long.
Dang, time
But
flies.
I know, right? It never it flies when it's a good conversation. And I just looked at the clock and I was like, oh, we've been going almost 2 hours. So but I wanted to ask, I had two other questions for you. What is next? Like what's next for you? Are you like still, I mean, are you focused on your career right now? I mean, like, do you have any big plans for the future? I mean, should people be on the lookout for anything from Mindy Shiben?
Good question. I'm like, I just turned 35 a few days ago,
Happy
and
belated birthday. That's
thank
when you said you would be on the show, and I was like, it's your birthday, so thank you. But
yeah, but and I look past like last year, 34 was just a I guess good year, but a very eventful year. Like, with Married at First Sight, and then I had a great skating season, and then, now ended with a pandemic. Um, so I'm like now just kind of taking the time to, as corny as it sounds, get back in touch with myself. I'm like a really adventurous person and set up like a bunch of travel plans and everything. And as soon as I'm able to, I'm going to jump back on those plans. And of course, I'm going to keep teaching skating and looking for Mr. Right. Like that's really what like I do feel like where I was going into the show that everything is in a good place for me career wise, friendship wise, like lifestyle wise, all those things. And I do want to meet somebody and eventually, well, like travel with that person first and then eventually like have a family. So I am gonna, prioritize dating. Hard to do in the quarantine situation, but slowly as we start making progress there, I want to do that more.
yeah, and I mean, I think too, if you're, because again, like I think that you kind of showed that like you can be strong and handle yourself without needing somebody there. But there's also that want. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like everybody wants to have somebody. I know
Yeah,
my life is a million times easier every day because my wife is here. And
yeah,
um, so I really hope I really hope that you find what you're looking for, but more importantly, I hope that you find what you deserve. You know what I
thank
mean?
you.
Because no, I mean, like, I don't know. It's just hard. That's the hardest part about watching the show is just being like, this is somebody who is again, very obviously genuine, somebody who is committed, someone who is, I'm putting my heart on the line. I want to be true to this experiment. And then to get what you got back, it's just, just wish absolutely nothing but the best for you. You know what I mean?
Thank
Like
you.
you deserve someone who's going to do the same for you.
Yeah.
So, um, the last thing I wanted to ask you. So this is actually going to air the day that season 11 premieres.
Yeah.
Do you plan? Are you planning on, now that you've gone through the experiment, now that you've gone through the process, are you planning on sitting down and watching season 11 with that insider knowledge?
100%. I'm already so invested. They had the matchmaking special on last night. So they
What?
do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm watching that when this is over.
Yeah. So yeah, if I have Hulu, that's how I watch it. So yeah, so they do the whole background stories on everybody, and so I feel like I know them a little bit already now after that. And I've seen a couple of the exclusive clips that have come out, and yeah, with the insider knowledge. So like, it's funny because some things can like look really bad, but then you also have to think like, okay, there's a before and an after that we haven't seen, and you know, like some people also, I think sometimes cameras like make people nervous when you're not used to them. So you might say something that you think is like sarcastic and funny, and it comes out sounding like super arrogant. So I would just say to everyone, like, even though there are the people that might not deserve the benefit of the doubt, like I'm hoping we can give like all 10 of these people just a clean slate off the bat for now, and like not judge them too early, because I'm hoping I can like have like live vicariously through an awesome couple this season. Like, yes, that's what I wanted. Yes, awesome. But no, I have high hopes for them.
Well, I know during your season they brought some people who had been on the show and they were doing like a commentary on. So I'm really hoping that maybe they ask you to do something like that, or we can get some commentary from you. Because again, like I loved, every week if we didn't get to watch it the night of, with having the little one, it's, sometimes we're limited. It's like we had to shut off Sesame Street or the Muppets to put on something, you know what I mean? So thank God for On Demand and Hulu and stuff like that. We get to catch up, but like once a week we were sitting down and hanging out with you. So I'm really looking, if they do that, I'd really love to see you there and to get your to kind of get your commentary on what's going on. And I just want to again say thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, this is I was like genuinely like, so we like the episode would end and we would just be talking about you. Like we're like just genuinely fans of yours. So the fact that you were, able to take the time and sit down, like just, it means everything. I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
Awesome.
This has been fun.
Well, thank you for doing it. And will you stick around for a minute after we wrap up?
Of course.
Sure. Awesome. Well, guys, that's it. That's Johnversations Podcast, episode 22. Again, big thanks to Miss Mindy Shiben. We'll link up her Instagram account. Go follow her. She's got an awesome Instagram page. Just, thank you guys so much for listening and hanging out. And we will see you next week for episode 23.